Thanks for staying with us here on The Real Story. It's National Preservation Month, and The Real Story is talking this morning about civic history here in Connecticut's state capital. As the Constitution states, so much of our past is steeped in political engagement, and the old State House in downtown Hartford is truly the center of it all. Joining me now to talk about it, Events and Outreach Manager for Connecticut's Old State House, Nicole Sousa. Nicole, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, we said Connecticut has a lot of history, especially civic history. That might even be an understatement to say a lot. There's so much. So tell us a little bit quickly about the Old State House, a little introduction. How does it emulate that statement that Connecticut has a lot of history?
Yeah, absolutely. So the building that you see when you come to downtown Hartford is from 1796. So it is a very old building. Yeah. We actually just celebrated our 228th birthday. We like to call it a birthday for the building, which seems very fun and it's silly, but it's a really great time and it's a way to bring that fun energy into a very historic space. Yeah. So this building is here as a community space and a gathering space for everybody, not just downtown residents, not just downtown workers, not just even Hartford people. Right. It's for the entire state. So we really like to make it a state-focused effort. But 1796 was the building's birthday and birth year, I guess I should say, and we've been using it almost ever since.
Wow. And Connecticut is the Constitution state, really an awesome way to bring something that, kids might see in their textbooks, the Constitutional Convention, and really be in it right here in Hartford, as you said, still using the building to this day. We know some of the founding fathers get a little bit extra recognition and clout. A lot of times George Washington, and we know he has a famous portrait displayed in the State House, but the past few years, us musical theater nerds know Alexander Hamilton has really gotten a lot of recognition, and the cast of that show might be meeting at Connecticut's Old State House. Is that what I heard?
If you're hearing it, I'm hearing it, and that would be awesome if that happened. Right. But there are stories and connections from Alexander Hamilton to the Old State House. When Washington and Rochambeau met for the very first time in 1780, which was to plan the Battle of Yorktown and kind of get that introduction, Alexander Hamilton was there with Washington. So there's a lot of really fun little clips and stories into that.
That's amazing. And speaking of that, I know you have so many cool facts about this. So what are maybe some pieces of history you think people are most shocked by, or maybe the most unknown parts that you'd like to let people know?
I think one of the most unknown parts is how many people were just in that building using it as a government space. We have connections to P.T. Barnum, the circus guy, and everyone knows him as the circus guy, but they don't ever know him as a legislator, and he served in the House chamber in our building.
That is very cool. Yeah. I had no idea.
It's a fun one.
Yeah, and as we mentioned at the top, it's currently National Preservation Month. So a lot of work goes into preserving all that history. As you said, a more than 200-year-old building would not be still standing and still being used without both that physical preservation work as well as preserving these stories. So we know families are looking to do things as school gets out, summer break is starting soon. Here in downtown Hartford, maybe wanting to work in a little bit of that state history might not always be top of people's minds for a fun activity if they're not history nerds like us. But, what would you tell people about maybe considering the Old State House? What are some options and offerings for them?
So we have a ton of fun things that you can do through the summer as families, as just people coming into Hartford. We run a farmer's market 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Fridays starting June 21st. We have summer concerts throughout the season during the farmer's market, so that's a great chance to come out to downtown. But then it's just a fun way to come and learn about Hartford and Connecticut's history and engage in a really fun kind of hands-on way with what's going on.
Yeah. So one of the really critical parts of civic history, which is so much relevant today, is voting. From legislature and constitutional challenges, even in the current presidential race, I know you're really seeing that firsthand. How is what we saw in the past really reflecting in the future right now?
Well, to be honest, we love to vote. Voting is one of our favorite things to do. We run the Kid Governor program out of the Old State House, and it's a program between the Old State House and the nonprofit that we work for, the Connecticut Democracy Center. But it's a chance for fifth graders to be empowered and learn about different things in their community and vote for a fifth grader to be their one-year termed kid governor. We have a lot of voting that happens in the building in general. During the election cake contest that we throw in November, there's an audience vote. So we get to let people just vote for their favorite cake. And there's a lot of little aspects like that we bring in from the history of the past into what you can do in the future.
And tell me a little bit more about the cake, which you mentioned. That always gets people really excited. I've always seen all the pictures on social media. So what's that program?
We love cake, is really what it comes down to. But Hartford had this really old tradition in the probably 50s to like 1800 of election cake, and it was called the Hartford election cake.
Wow.
So it was a spice cake. Most people now make it as a bundt cake, and it was just a way to feed people who are coming into Hartford for election day, which was more of a big celebration than what we think of it as today. Now it's just something that we have to do and go and vote. At that point, it was something really fun and engaging to do. So we've turned that into a new spin where bakers from across the state will bake cakes. They have to be nonpartisan and they have to be election themed, but that's really the only parameters that we have. And then we have a whole panel of judges who pick the Hartford election cake for the year, and it's so much fun.
That's amazing. Maybe, if elections were tied more to cake, we might see people more interested. But I mean, hey, anything we can do to get them excited. Have you found that program and some of the other things that the State House does are helping? Because we know voters are disenfranchised. They feel kind of blah about elections, really disengaged with politics. Do you feel like these programs are helping re-engage voters?
We hope so, for sure. I mean, it's a fun way to engage with the political system, with elections, and it kind of brings back that idea of fun into election day, which can be really stressful sometimes.
Yeah. So not just cakes and other history, you also have walking tours right now in downtown, Thursdays and Saturdays, called Fires, Floods, and Acts of God. Tell me a little bit about that.
And we're going down to just Saturdays.
Okay.
So Saturdays at 10 a.m. because a morning walking tour is just a really fun way to start your weekend. But it's all about natural disasters in downtown Hartford. So it's about a mile loop. We start at the Old State House and we go up to Riverfront, down to Arch Street, if you're familiar with downtown, and then back up Main Street. But we talk about historic flooding. We talk about blizzard of 1888. We talk a lot about just the natural disasters that happen and how Hartford responded.
Yeah, and in our last minute here, we know this is our capital city. We know it's faced tough times, lots of different things. As you mentioned, natural disasters, which people might not think about right away. But, back when the State House was the seat of government here, Hartford really was truly the center of Connecticut, was really a thriving city. You are trying to be part of engaging that community again, bringing back that pride and that gathering here to Hartford. That really does come with striking a balance between history as well as new development, new business, and new events, right?
It definitely does. And we're always trying to bring something new and fun and different to the community, but also keeping that history alive.
And if people want to know more about these events as we look to head into summer, what should they know? Where should they go?
ctoldstatehouse.org or our Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, which is all CT Old State House.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for shining this little light on civic history, kinetic history, and Hartford history as well. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that does it for us here on The Real Story. But if you want to watch these segments again, you can head to fox61.com or download the free Fox 61 News app and watch The Real Story every Sunday at 10 a.m. right here on Fox 61 or streaming on Fox 61 Plus. Have a great morning.